COVID-19 pandemic when Takatso was selected as the preferred bidder. SAA will continue to operate as a government-owned entity and is in a position to continue to operate in its current form for the short to medium term. On 30 years of freedom and democracy, Cabinet approved the concept plan and campaign to implement 30 years of freedom and democracy, both domestically and internationally. South Africa is marking 30 years since its historic election of the 27th of April 1994, and there will never be any other elections that will be similar to the elections of the 27th of April 1994. The commemoration of this milestone in the trajectory of our developmental democracy requires a government-wide and country-wide approach. The campaign to celebrate 30 years of freedom and democracy aims to mobilize the country to celebrate the gains and achievements and the milestones of 30 years of democratic rule and living in a free and democratic society, and to highlight the achievements of the democratic government since 1994, and to highlight and profile the progress of individuals, communities, and business within the country, which has enabled which was enabled by the democratic dispensation. The campaign focuses on 4 pillars, which are the people, the government, the community at large, and the national celebrations. Cabinet has also approved the National Security Strategy for implementation in line with the National Strategic Intelligence Act, and the National Security Strategy will provide the basis of the country developing the National Strategic Intelligence Policy. Cabinet further approved the National Intelligence Estimate and the National Intelligence Priorities as submitted by NICOC for implementation. Of course, we will not release the details of that. Will release after consultation with the other national intelligence structures, the version that are not sensitive to national security interests. On bills, Immigration Amendment Bill of 2023, Cabinet approved the submission of the Immigration Amendment Bill of 2023 to Parliament, and the purpose of the bill is to give effect to the Constitutional Court's judgment delivered on 29 June 2017 and 30 October 2023, respectively. The bill seeks to address the 2 Constitutional Court judgments by amending Section 34(1)(b) and (d) of the Principal Act so as to ensure that any illegal foreigner detained under Section 34(1) of the Principal Act is brought before a court in person within 48 hours from the time of his or her arrest, in order for the court to determine whether it is in the interest of justice to order further detention for purposes of deportation. The bill addresses the interest of justice criterion to be applied by the immigration officer and the court. On upcoming events, Human Rights Day. The commemoration of the National Human Rights Day will take place at the George Tabbe Stadium in Sharpeville, Gauteng, on Thursday, the 21st March 2024. The National Human Rights Day commemorates the Sharpeville massacre of 1960 and other massacres that followed, where peaceful protesters marching against discriminatory pass laws were fatally shot by the apartheid police and others were wounded. Hosting the event Human Rights Day. The commemoration of the National Human Rights Day will take place at the George Tabbe Stadium in Sharpeville, Gauteng, on Thursday, the 21st March 2024. The National Human Rights Day commemorates the Sharpeville massacre of 1960 and other massacres that followed, where peaceful protesters marching against discriminatory pass laws were fatally shot by the apartheid police and others were wounded. Hosting the event in Sharpeville symbolizes government's commitment to honor the sacrifices made by those who fought and died for our liberation in Sharpeville and other communities throughout the country. On the National Conference on Human Rights in South Africa, the Department of Justice and Correctional Services will host the National Conference on Human Rights in South Africa at the Bearshot Hotel from the 18th to the 20th of March 2024 under the theme 3 Decades of Respect for and Promotion of Human Rights. On World Water Day, South Africa remains a water-scarce country, and the upcoming National Water Week from the 20th to the 26th of March 2024 will promote heightened awareness to empower and educate citizens about the responsibility to conserve water. The week coincides with World Water Day on Friday, which will be on Friday, 22nd March 2024, which is marked under the theme Water for Peace and the focus on the critical role water plays in the stability and prosperity of the country, of the world. Water remains the lifeblood of any thriving society, and it is a prerequisite for development and growth. The Department of Water and Sanitation is working diligently to ensure that this life-giving resource can continue to drive our development as we embark on the 30 years of freedom and democracy. Cabinet called on all citizens to protect our precious water resources. We all have a role to play in saving water and ensuring that our supply does not run dry so that we can ensure water for all. As municipalities continue to upgrade their water infrastructure to prevent the leaks, South Africans and all within the borders of the country are requested and urged to conserve water and make sure that we don't use water for unnecessary things and spare water from gardening and our lawns and make sure that water is available for drinking purposes. Our metros and our municipalities continue to suffer water shortages, and it's all our responsibility to ensure that we have water. And on World Tuberculosis Day, the annual commemoration of the World TB Day will be on Sunday, 24th March 2024, and it is a sobering reminder that TB remains one of the leading causes of ill health and death in South Africa. South Africa remains among the nations hardest hit by TB, and we also face the challenge of TB patients not completing their treatment. This challenge is further compounded by many cases of TB either getting to become multi-drug resistant or extensively drug resistant. However, despite these challenges, TB can be cured and treatment options are available. If you have a fever you are losing weight, having drenching sweat at night, or have been coughing for more than 2 weeks, get tested for TB as soon as possible. The Black Industrialist Conference. The second edition of the Black Industrialist and Exporters Conference is scheduled to take place at the Sandton Convention Center in Johannesburg on Wednesday, the 20th of March 2024. The conference will recognize business excellence and honor enterprises that embody the spirit of success and innovation and demonstrate job creation, good business ethics, and quality. There is also a conference on the infrastructure. Will provide the details with the updated statement, which will be hosted by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. On appointments, all appointments are subject to the verification of qualifications and relevant security clearances. Cabinet approved the appointment of Ms. Tato Ramaili as Chief Executive Officer of the Property Practitioners Regulatory Authority. On the appointment of members of the Legacy Board of the Merging Central Energy Fund entities, and they said they will find a new name of the entity. Cabinet approved the appointment of Ms. Unati Figlen as the chairperson, Mr. Tembinkosi Bonakele as a member, Mr. Petrus Fusi, Mr. Llewellyn Delport, non-executive director, Ms. Dizietzi Morabe, Group Chief Financial Officer, and Ms. Brenda Moages, Group Legal and Compliance Executive, as members of the board. Appointment of members of the South African National Petroleum Company. Cabinet approved the appointment of the following: Mr. Sipho Mkhize as the chairperson, Mr. Phumzile E. Kedama, Ms. Mahula Mukololo, Mr. Mxolisi C. Koyo, Ms. Phumeza Z. Dlamini, Ms. Nosizwe Nonkwe Machamo, Mr. Sam Muliko, Dr. Nompumelelo Sishwana, and Ms. Lauren Peterson. On messages of congratulations, Cabinet extended its congratulations and well wishes to Dr. Phil Mujara, the Director General of the Department of Science and Innovation, for being awarded the Presidential Award during the 10th Annual South African Medical Research Council Merit Awards held in Cape Town on Thursday, 7 March 2024. He was honored for his visionary leadership in promoting science in South Africa and abroad, and Dr. Mujara is going to his retirement. Professor Busani Ncaweni, the principal of the National School of Government, for being elected as the Secretary General of the African Management Development Institutes Network. And the National School of Government is doing phenomenal work both in the Republic, in professionalizing the public service, but also within the SADC region, that they are working with other governments to make sure that the public service within the region are then also professionalized. Cabinet wished to congratulate Team South Africa for beating New Zealand in the final of over 40 Cricket World Cup in Cape Town on Friday, 1st March 2024. There was also a decision not to talk about the derby results of the weekend. Also, Cabinet congratulates Mr. Sean Maswanganyi, South African sprinting sensation, who set a new South African record in the men's 200 meters short track at an indoor track and field event in Texas over the weekend. Maswanganyi clocked 20.41 seconds to eclipse the record previously held mark of 20.45 seconds by Qilinqilili Titi, which had stood since 2015. Cabinet wishes to congratulate Dr. Kari N. Minar, internationally acclaimed South African doctor, and her colleagues from the Vets Donald Medical Center University. Their breakthrough research in cervical cancer will bring hope to millions of women, not only in South Africa, but across the globe. Cabinet wishes to congratulate Dr. Johan Rassi Erasmus for an honorary doctorate bestowed upon him by the University of Northwest. On condolences, Cabinet wishes to express its condolences to the family and friends of Professor Edward Webster, 82, the leading sociologist, academic, and labor activist who held various teaching and research positions in some of the country's leading universities. He was instrumental in training several generations of left-wing scholars, many of whom are now leading academics, trade unionists, researchers, and policy analysts. Cabinet extends its condolences to the family and friends of the 13 people who lost their lives in the collision involving a bus and a truck at the Hex River Mountain Pass in the Western Cape on Saturday, 9th March 2024. Cabinet wishes to extend its condolences to the family and friends of Ongeziwe Kamlana, the 17-year-old grade 12 learner at the Fezeka High School in Gugulethu, Cape Town, who went missing on Saturday, 17 February 2024, and a charred body was later found inside a bent-down bungalow in Case River. Law enforcement agencies are working to bring to book those who are responsible for the death of Ongeziwe Kamlana. Cabinet also wishes to extend its condolences to the family and friends of Professor Moraro Doyoyo, a leading scientist, researcher, and innovator who has passed on and will be laid to rest this weekend. May their souls rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the comprehensive statement. I am now going to invite questions. I will first start with the colleagues who are in the Imbizo Center. The normal routine is you introduce yourself in the media house, and then you go to the question. I'm not sure where should I start, but let me start with the lady, and then I'll go to the gentleman. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Minister. Lindsay Dekina, Eyewitness News. Just on the Palestine matter with the ICJ, which you mentioned earlier. About 2 weeks ago, there were some concerns raised here in Parliament that Cabinet has still not discussed the National Assembly resolution regarding the permanent closure of embassies in South Africa and Israel respectively. Could you perhaps just give us an update as to why the resolution has perhaps not been discussed, or when it may be discussed, or indeed if it has been discussed in the Parliament? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Morning, Minister. Paul Dekirata from Bloomberg. Last night, the Minister of Finance announced an increase in the social relief grant of 3 rand to 270 rand per month. Was that actually a cabinet decision taken yesterday or recently? Because while we know it's been discussed, we don't know of an actual decision being taken until announced last night. Then secondly, on that point, where will the money come from? So because that isn't allocated in the national budget is a line item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister, I'm not sure, should we take the online ones, or you want to take this one? Thank you very much. I'm also joined by my colleague Liesel, who will give us the online questions. Liesel.
Thank you very much, Chief, and thank you, Minister. We will start with Tapila's question from City Press. Can you please ask the Minister on Cabinet's response to the recent threats by the MK Party that there will be social unrest should the party not be on the ballot paper for the upcoming elections? What is Cabinet's official statement on threats of violence in light of the upcoming elections? Then Christian Duplessis from Netwerk 24. Did Cabinet discuss the letters sent by the DA and the multi-party charter to the USA and other countries regarding the upcoming elections? Then Kulakani Magubani from the Business Times asks, what options is Cabinet considering to provide capital to South African Airways now that the deal with Qatar has been terminated? How soon does government hope to implement such an option if one does exist? And then a final one, apologies, Minister. Kulakani Magubani, what options is Cabinet considering regarding South African Airways now that the deal has been terminated? And the last of these parts of the question is, how soon does government hope to implement such an option if one does exist? Then the final one comes from Arthur from Heart FM in Cape Town. Minister, last time you indicated that the Minister of Justice and Competent Governance and Judicial Affairs were going to hold discussions with the Western Cape government over the Powers Bill. Minister, can you please give us the status of those talks, and can you confirm if there were agreements reached? That is all from the WhatsApp line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. We can give you this opportunity to respond to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. On the first one, in terms of the closing of embassies and recall of diplomats, the resolution of the National Assembly, you will recall that in the country there is what we call separation of powers between the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. The National Assembly has taken a resolution which the executive will consider at its appropriate time. As things stand, where we are is that there is no point of what is a good word? All the diplomats of South Africa have been recalled for consultation from Israel. There is no South African diplomat, as things stand, that is in Israel. Equally, the ambassador of Israel to South Africa was recalled to go back to Israel for consultation. So, so there's an academic exercise, but what is at focus is that the people of Gaza, Rafah, and the West Bank are continuing to be killed. They are continuing to be stayed by the Israeli government, who are refusing aid to enter those occupied territories. And when aid is being airdropped, people are suffering and they are becoming victims. As the government of South Africa, our call is that there must be a complete end of cessation of hostilities and fighting, so that aid can reach the people. The World Health Organization has also commented on the state of affairs for the people in Gaza. So our primary concern is not a closure of embassies where there's nobody. Our primary concern is that the people of Gaza must have peace, the people of Rafah must be safe, and there's no threat that gets extended to the West Bank. The people of Gaza and Rafah and the West Bank must have access to food, to much needed health care and medical attention. That is the focus. And our view is that the only lasting solution is not the continuing bombardment by Israeli government of those areas. Our view is that for Israel to have peace, it's when they will coexist side by side with the people of Palestine in a two-nation state solution. That is the view of Cabinet, and that's the reason that we have gone as Cabinet to the ICJ, not only once but also to get the directives of the ICJ on the continuing violation of its own rulings. As relates to the matter of the 350 and the raising it to the 370, if you recall that at the time of the passing of the budget, the Minister of Finance has indicated that they are reworking the numbers to make sure that there will be an increase of the 350 social relief, SRD, social relief of the distress grant, to make sure, so that we can then accommodate the cost of living adjustment. And that was always penciled in. They needed to sort out where will the line come from. If you go back and read the budget speech, that was indicated in the budget speech, but also in the State of the Nation address, it was also indicated that there will be such a provision. So where will the money come from? For the Minister of Finance to announce yesterday, it means they have an allocation. And that's why they said they will delay the allocation until they've done their a reassessment of the budget allocations and provide for it. You'll recall that the budget, even if it's not tabled there, the budget adjustments will cater for that provision. There is mechanisms in place to address those mechanisms. On the funding options of the SAA, as indicated by the Minister of Public Enterprises, the SAA balance sheet is now stronger, and its asset value has increased, so they will be able to raise the necessary funding through the market and the other commitments that were already made by National Treasury. You recall National Treasury had made a commitment to support, but there were conditions precedent. If those conditions are satisfied, National Treasury will then come in on the part that they had committed, that they will come in to support SAA. But as things stand, SAA is able to sustain itself within the short to medium term through the, like any other business, through its balance sheet. In terms of the discussion between the Western Cape and the two ministers of COGTA and Minister of Justice, we don't have an update as yet, but what is adamant from the public utterances of the Premier of the Western Cape and the DA in the Western Cape is very clear that the Western Cape government is using electioneering for something that will never happen under the current constitutional arrangement, and the relevant national departments will have to activate the constitutional provisions to deal with attempts to secede and create a Republic of the Western Cape within a Republic of South Africa. There's only one Republic of South Africa. on the DA letter to the U.S. Cabinet did not discuss the DA letter to the U.S., but because there's no purpose of discussing the letter, we will not allow an undermining of the sovereignty of the Republic of South Africa. To invite countries who do not have themselves a participatory democracy at the level that we participate, to have countries that do not have observer participation mechanisms themselves, to have countries that are already denying their own citizens the rights to vote. You know, there are states in the U.S. that have curtailed rights to votes of certain people and all those, to come and observe and play Big Brother in South Africa. It will not happen. South Africa is a sovereign republic, and we have our own rules. We have our own observer mechanism, and this democracy has stood the test of time. And it has stood the test of time because we are having an electoral system or an electoral agency in the Independent Electoral Commission that has time and again shown their independence, their resilience, and their astuteness. We have been leading not only the continent, but the world in making sure that we deliver free and fair elections. And there has not been, except the other one that I'm going to talk about, there has not been intimidation, there has not been violations of people's right to vote in this country. We have a mechanism that is established. There is no one party that wants to become a puppet of another country that will diminish the sovereign right and the sovereignty of the people of South Africa. This freedom was not for free. This freedom was not for play. This freedom will continue to protect it in honor of those who died for it. And the right to vote in South Africa is sacrosanct for everyone and everybody. And that's why there are processes. You are aware yourself of the numerous court cases that were taken to make sure that the electoral system of South Africa continues to be robust. We have now included independent candidates. There have been all sorts of interventions. Even our courts have been coming to the party, and all political parties except the DA and the MK party have been coming to the party to make sure that South Africa's electoral system remains with its highest of integrity and will remain with free and fair elections. So there's no point of discussing a letter that is inconsequential. We are very confident of our electoral system. As for the MK party, people who are threatening people, there was no discussion in cabinet, but law enforcement agencies must do its work to apprehend those who intimidate South Africans as instructed by the president, that there's nobody who's going to intimidate South Africans. There will be free and fair elections in this country. We'll protect it with all we have. Anybody who threatens violence when we've got dispute resolution mechanisms for either elections or any type of dispute does not deserve to live among South Africans. And law enforcement officers and agencies must make sure that they are brought to book, because there won't be mayhem, there won't be a repeat of the July 2021 unrest in this country when our law enforcement agencies are at work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister in the Presidency, Minister Ntshavheni. Let me check if we have follow-up questions in the House. Recognized?
Sorry, my first one follow-up on SAA. Takatsu said yesterday in their statements, one of the major reasons why they wanted to pull out of the deal was due to the red tape. If they continued, they would face at least another year competition tribunal hearing. Is Cabinet concerned about the increase in red tape and cutting threads? I mean, there have been statements from the President saying he wants to streamline red tape processes, and especially for the private sector where they operate on the same their time is money. So was that raised as a concern in Cabinet yesterday? Secondly, sorry, may I ask a couple more questions?
No, you're welcome.
Secondly, by my calculation, this is the second last Cabinet meeting of this administration. Has Cabinet discussed in any way what a new Cabinet structure would look like in the next administration? So what comes to mind are two issues. One is in the presidency there are now 8 ministers and deputy ministers together, am I correct?
No.
But it's quite a large number. And then also there's talk, or the plans supposed to be put out was then the Ministry and Department of Public Enterprises. Last year in December, the acting DG, they said plans are underway that by the 1st of April, that department would be gone. So have you discussed this? Are those plans to disband the Department of Public Enterprise? Is it going ahead? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Let me check. Lizal, do you have any? Thank you very much. I think, Minister, these were the last questions that we have, and you will then also close the media briefing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The cabinet did not, there was no mention of red tape, and I'll explain why. So I want to deal with your question in two parts. The first part is whether cabinet remains concerned about the red tape that business continues to confront whilst doing business in South Africa. Yes. And that's why there are measures to deal with red tape, and we continue to make interventions even when there are improvements. If you recall that when we are making the cabinet statement, we announced the measures to deal with the tourism operator license backlog as part of cutting down some of the red tapes and the interventions that we make to make sure then that those where there are red tapes, they are done. But it is very disingenuous for Takatso to call up the competition tribunal process red tape. It is not red tape. It's part of the due diligence that is required to make sure that there is no monopolies, but there's also no unfair and uncompetitive behavior by business. So the competition tribunal process cannot be deemed as red tape, not at all. In addition, if you recall, when the Takatso consortium transaction was being considered by the Competition Commission, they were told about what is the right term? I forgot the right term. Where they had a member or a director or a partner within the Takatso consortium who was already running a competing airline, which is uncompetitive. So if those processes of the Competition Commission were not in place, it will mean then you could then put the Takatso consortium, let's say the transaction goes ahead, and then there would be competition with Lyft. And therefore, who would they prioritize, Lyft or the SAA? And that's what, and we're not saying this because of government, but any other business, we would have to make sure there's no uncompetitive behavior, there's no cannibalization of the market by business. And the Competition Commission processes, including the Competition Tribunal process, is not red tape. There is red tape, and we continue to resolve the extent of the red tape. And on the cabinet structure, cabinet has not discussed the structure. But on the two questions, again, I want to explain the questions that you have raised. The closure of DPE is not talk of corridor. The president, I can't recall when, has announced that DPE is going to be closed, and the entities under DPE will go back to the line departments. So it's not hearsay or whatever, and there's been work to make sure that there's proper winding up and transfers of those entities that are under DPE. Whether it will close by the 1st of April is not an issue at discussion. It's an issue of when they complete what will happen. But there is the work on because the president committed to the reduction of government departments and realignment of government departments. There is work that is being undertaken by the presidency and National Treasury in consultation with other departments, which is called the NMOC process. I just forgot what the abbreviation of NMOC stands for, but we can find what it means. That is having the consultations. Can we announce that? No, we cannot announce that. It is a constitutionally provided right and responsibility of the president to announce his or her cabinet structure. So when that process is finalized, the president will be the final arbiter on which department stays and which department goes, and he will announce the cabinet that responds to those decisions after the elections. Thank you very much. We want to wish you a fruitful day further, a good weekend. And then next week we've got Human Rights Day. Please enjoy yourself and look after yourself on Human Rights Day. And we are going to have our ultimate cabinet on the 27th of March.
Yeah.
We are still going to determine, depending on the parliamentary program, we will determine. Remember, we host a cabinet depending on what we are required to do in Parliament. If there are things that require us to be in Parliament, we will be here. If there are no things that require us to be in Parliament, we will be in